all right, so we're going to be going over Lesson 11, Algebra 1, Lesson 11. And the first part of Lesson 11 is about reciprocal and multiplicative inverse. Now, those sound like scary words, but they're actually really easy. And they mean the same thing. Reciprocal is just when you flip a fraction. It's harder to spell than explain. It's when you flip a fraction upside down. So if you have 1/3, you flip it and you get 3/1. If you have 2, you flip it. That really means 2/1, so you get 1/2. Okay, so 1/3 is the reciprocal of 3, and 2 is the reciprocal of 1/2. All right, so any number times its reciprocal. Oh, let's go over this. Reciprocal also means multiplicative inverse. And we talked about additive inverse. This is kind of like that. So inverse means the opposite of. And multiplicative means multiply. So we're doing the opposite of multiplying. We're dividing. Flipping a fraction is how you divide. When you multiply 2/1 times 3/4, what do we do to the second fraction? We flip and multiply. So flipping a fraction and multiplying it undoes that fraction. So let's say that we had 3 times 5. Well, if we want to undo this multiplication, we can multiply it by 1/3, because that really means divide by 3. See how these will cancel? So if we multiply anything by its reciprocal, it equals 1. And it undoes the multiplication, because when you multiply something times 1, it still means the same thing as when you started. So any number times its reciprocal is equal to 1. Now, can we do 0's reciprocal? So if we add 0, which is really 0/1, if we flip that, we're going to get 1/0. Remember, we can't have 0 on the bottom in the denominator of a fraction. So 0 is the only number without a reciprocal. So 0 has no reciprocal. Because we cannot divide by 0. So, I want you guys to understand that multiplying something times 1/2 is really the same thing as saying divided by 2. 6 times 1/2 would be 6/2, which is 3. 6 divided by 2 is the same thing as 3. So times 1/2 is the same thing as divided by 2. Remember, division and fractions are the same thing. 1/3 means 1 divided by 3. Okay? Alright, so how would you get rid of times 3? You divide by 3. So times 1/3. Alright, next part is about the order of operations. Order of operations. Mostly what they go over in this lesson is that you're going to multiply before you add. So multiply, then add or subtract. And this is just something like that all mathematicians have agreed on. So if we had, let's say, 6 times 2 plus 4. If we did 6 times 2 first, and we got 12, and then we add 4, and we get 16. But if we did it the other way, 6 times 2 plus 4, if we said 2 plus 4, we would get 8. And then if we said 6 times 8, we would get 48. You see how the answer is extremely different. So we have to have a standard way that everybody does it. So they came up with order of operations. So you're always going to multiply first, then add. I'll do some examples. 11.1. 11.1 is 4 times 3 plus 2 plus negative 3 times 5. Okay? So here we have to multiply first. So the places where we're going to multiply are here and here, because this is touching the parentheses. That means we have to multiply it. There's no sign right there. There's no plus or minus sign. All right, 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2. 3 times 5 is 15, and that's negative 15, because a negative times a positive makes a negative. All right, so now we can just add up our positives and our negatives here. So we have 2 positives. That's going to be 14 minus 15. So the answer to that one is negative 1. Right? So the key to doing these correctly is to make sure that you're doing all of your multiplication first. So find all your multiplication and do it first, then add or subtract. Let's try another one. All right, this one is negative 5 times 2 minus 3 plus 6 times 3. Okay, so I'm going to find all the places where I need to multiply first. So here it's touching, we don't have any sign. And here we don't have a sign. See how in between there's no plus or minus sign? That means we have to multiply. Same thing here. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10, and that would be negative 10. Negative 5 times positive 2. Then we have this minus 3. Then we have 6 times 3, so that would be positive 18. Now we just have to put our negatives and our positives together. We have 2 negatives, negative 10, negative 3. I'm going to write the 18 first, and then it says 18 minus 13 equals 5. All right, we'll do another one. This one is 11.3. These are in your textbook, and I am on page 52. Okay, so this one says 4 times 3 minus 2 times 5 plus 6 minus 5 times 2. Okay, so first I'm going to go through and figure out all the places where I'm multiplying. 3 times 4, 2 times 5, and 5 times 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 5 is 10, and it's going to be negative 10. Then I have a positive 6. Then I have 5 times 2, which is 10, and it's going to be negative 10. All right, now I'm going to put together all my negatives and positives. So here's a negative number, and here's a negative number. So that would be negative 20. And here we have 12 plus 6 is 18. So if we have 18 minus 20, we have $18, and we want to spend $20, we're going to have to borrow 2. So negative 2 is the answer to that one. All right, everybody needs to pause the video and work the practice problems. After you've worked the practice problems, you can push play, and I'm going to work the practice problems on my little whiteboard here, and we'll see if you got them right. So pause the video. Okay, so I assume that you guys worked all the practice problems, and I'm going to work them on my whiteboard here. So first one is A, and it is 6 times 3 minus 4 times 5 times 6. Okay, so the first thing I have to do with this one is find where I'm going to multiply. So I am going to multiply here, and here, and here. So all three of those have to be multiplied together. 6 times 3 is 18. Now I have to do 4 times 5, which is 20. And then I have to do 20 times 6, which would be 120. Now, is this going to be positive or negative? Well, I have one negative sign here, so that means that all this is negative. 120 minus 18 would be negative 108. Oh, well, it's 18 minus 120. So I have $18, but I want to spend $120. I'm going to have to borrow 108 from my mom. All right, so that was A. Now I'll do B. This is 3 times 5 plus 2 plus 4 times negative 2. All right, so first I got to figure out all the places where I'm multiplying. 3 times 5, 4 times negative 2. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2. And then 4 times negative 2 would be, 4 times 2 is 8. Negative times a positive makes a negative, so negative 8. Alright, so here it's pretty easy. We can put these positives together, and we'll have 17 minus 8. So the answer is 9. Alright, C. And I encourage you to not just put the answers alone on your paper. Write the problem out. It's a lot easier if you write it out. You cannot do it just looking at it. 2 times 4 minus 3 times 2 minus 7 plus 5 times 2. That's a long one. Let me double check and make sure I wrote this down right. 2 times 4 minus 3 times 2 minus 7 plus 5 times 2. Yep. Okay, on this one, I'm going to multiply first. So find all my multiplications. And if it helps you to underline your multiplications, do that. That way you don't get confused. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6, and that would be negative 6. Right, this one doesn't have any multiplication, so I just bring it down. 5 times 2 is 10, and that'll be positive 10. Okay, now I need to put my negatives and positives together. My positives are going to be 18, and then 6 and 6 is 12, 13, negative 13. So the answer to that one is 5. And then we have one more. This one's D, and it is 13 minus 4 times negative 5 minus 3 times 10. Okay, so here I'm going to put my multiplication first, so there and there. So first I'm just going to bring that 13 straight down because he's not being multiplied, so just leave him alone. And then I have negative 4 times negative 5. Negative times a negative makes a positive. 4 times 5 is 20. Then I have 3 times 10, and this is a negative times a positive, so that's going to be negative 30. Okay, and then I'm going to put my negatives and my positives together. I have two positives, so that will be 33 minus 30. So the answer to that one is 3. Okay, that is the end of lesson 11.